In this video, we will show you how to replace your passenger side inner tie rod end on this Dodge Ram 1500. This is part of your front steering and suspension, located just underneath your steering box. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Safely raise and support the front of the vehicle, make your way under the front. This is where you're going to find the right front outer tie rod end and the inner tie rod end. Let's make a quick measurement. When we use our measuring tool here, we're going to go from one tie rod end stud all the way up here, all the way over to the other side, just underneath the pitman arm on the other tie rod end stud. Now on my application, it looks like I'm at approximately 41 inches. Your results may vary. Go ahead and take note of that. You can write it down if necessary. Now in between the outer tie rod end and the inner tie rod end, there's an adjustment sleeve. We're going to go ahead and loosen that, but before we do the sleeve, let's also loosen this area here. You can see the two mounting nuts for the sleeve along the front on this application. The mounting nut for this area is right along the back side. For each of these, we'll be using a 15 millimeter. This should be able to move around. Just want to try to spread those ears so we can slide this down the outer tie rod end as needed. You can also flex this away if necessary. Now we'll focus on the sleeve mounting hardware. Once again, using 15 millimeter for each of these, we'll loosen them enough that we can gently spread these two clamps. Then we're going to have to turn the sleeve, breaking it free from both of the tie rod ends. Continuing on in this area, we're going to clean along both tie rod ends. There should be threaded areas that lead into the sleeve. As you can tell, there's a whole bunch of miscellaneous debris here. We're going to clean this with a wire brush and we'll use some penetrant. After that, we're going to work this back and forth, freeing it up. Use a wire brush if necessary. Now I have some long-handled pliers here. I'm just going to start turning this, as I mentioned, one direction or the other. When doing so, we essentially want to make our way back to the starting point. After that, we can continue on to removing the tie rod end from the sleeve. Now that we've broken that free, let's go ahead and tighten up this piece of mounting hardware here, holding the sleeve to the outer tie rod end. Make our way along that inner tie rod end there. Along the bottom, you should find that you have a locking cotter pin. We can remove that, and then we can remove the mounting nut. Use a 21 millimeter to remove the mounting nut. Now once you remove the mounting nut, the next thing you want to do is just start it back on there a couple threads. We're going to have to separate the inner tie rod end from your pitman arm. When doing so, just be extremely careful not to cause damage to the pitman arm or your steering box. To separate this, you could gently tap along the bottom area here with a hammer. You could also use a tie rod removal tool or even a pickle fork, making its way in between the joint area. Whatever works best for you. Now that we have that separated, we can remove the mounting nut. remove the inner tie rod end from that pitman arm, and we'll continue on unscrewing the inner tie rod end from that sleeve. You can pivot this down as necessary so you can easily gain access. To unscrew the inner tie rod end from the sleeve, we'll be turning it counterclockwise. We want to count the amount of turns it takes to remove it. So when we install the brand new tie rod end, we'll insert it the same amount of turns before double checking our measurement and tightening it down. One, two, and so on. Now I got approximately 41 turns. Your results may vary. Now that we have that out, it's time to start cleaning up two mounting surfaces. We have the area on the pitman arm. We want to pay attention to the port that leads up and through it, and of course the flat mating surfaces. We'll go ahead and wipe this down, give it a close inspection. If it looks like your pitman arm is rusted, rotted, or damaged in any way where you think it might be weak, you definitely want to replace it. This one looks fine. Let's move along to cleaning that sleeve. As for the sleeve, we'll be cleaning the inside area where you can see that threaded portion. We're going to use some parts cleaner. You can use a wire brush if necessary. Once again, if it looks like it's rotted and weak, you want to go ahead and replace the sleeve. Just a close look inside there. Continuing on, before we install the brand new tie rod end, we're going to want to add something inside on the threaded area. You could use some anti-seize if necessary, or you could also use some grease. I'm going to use a little bit of grease here to help keep moisture out of the area and prevent it from seizing up on me. All right, it's time to install the brand new inner tie rod end. When installing this, we want to make sure we turn it in the same amount of turns as it took to remove the original. I had 41 turns, as I said before. Your results may vary. Go ahead and get it as close as possible. Just got to try to get it started in. There we are. There's my 41 turns. Can remove that nut. Now let's bring this up and install it onto the pitman arm. Once you have it through there, let's continue on with the castle nut. We're going to start this on, bottom it out. The torque for this is 75 foot-pounds. Now, once you have that torqued, the next thing that you need to do is pay attention to the slots that are on the castle nut in comparison to the port that makes its way through the tie rod stud. We want it to be aligned so we can put the cotter pin through. If it's not properly aligned, you need to continue tightening this nut until the very next slot is, and then you can install that locking cotter pin. We'll make sure we peen this over so there's no way this nut can loosen up on us while we're driving down the road. With that torqued, let's make our way back towards the sleeve. We're going to tighten our clamp here. We'll try to make sure we have it aligned with the other one. We'll torque each of these clamps to 45 foot-pounds. Let's get this in here. We're having it aligned with each one of our clamps. We can tighten it up. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our right front outer tie rod ends. The next thing that you want to do is go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.